Hey folks, welcome. This is Bobcast and this is Bob Tripathi. I am back with my show, the podcast called Bobcast. And I'm super excited because we have a great guest today who comes from a slightly different world, not the SaaS world, not the D2C e-com world, but she comes from a world which basically is a great teacher in life, and that is sports. So, without any further ado, please welcome Reshina Warren. She's the VP of Marketing Social Media at WTA, which is Women's Tennis Association. And Rashina, I'm so pleased and honored and privileged to be talking to you today because some of the things in life that I'm really passionate about is marketing and tennis. So, welcome, and I will go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Again, I'm Reshina Warren. I'm the VP of Marketing for the WTA, so VP of Marketing and Social, actually. And so, yeah, I'm super happy to be here to talk about my journey and all that. I see you're on brand with your US Open t shirt. Kudos there. But yeah, excited for the conversation.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, big tennis buff, and as you can tell, so it's such a passion. I wish I can play as much as I follow tennis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I play a lot, and sure, I have my own beef with the pickleballers, but I think that would be for a different show. So I'm
Oh,
gonna
I
save
think,
you
oh
that.
man, I think that's a whole other topic and a whole other podcast right there. Tennis versus pickleball. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yes.
I
So.
actually recently just joined a tennis league, so I am now playing tennis. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. So, you mentioned that you are now with the Women's Tennis Association, and what were you doing before that? Like, were you in the same marketing, social media? Like, give us a background if you can.
Yeah, so my career, my journey, it's been kind of a winding road, but it's had a through line with marketing and social. And so I grew up with social media. This job actually didn't exist as I was growing up. And so I actually have an accounting degree. I quickly realized that I did not want to go into accounting. And so I went to grad school and I went to the University of Central Florida's DeVos Sport Management program where I got my double master's in sports and my MBA. So I went on after graduation to help start a WNBA team. Everyone watches women's sports, have my T-shirt on.
There you go.
So I helped start the Tulsa Shock, which is now the Dallas Wings. Then I went into like event marketing for Comic Cons. And then I worked for like 6 years where I really got my foundation for marketing for a sports technology firm called New Lion. And so we designed and developed college athletic websites and apps. And I learned all of my marketing and social. And then from there, I got recruited to go to Walt Disney World, to Walt Disney World Parks and Resorts, where ran paid and organic social for Walt Disney World, some segments and things like that. Ran that for 3 years and through COVID, which was quite interesting and magical. And then was recruited to go to the USTA, where I was the director of social media, content strategy, and analytics for the USTA, which is the national governing body of tennis in America, and then also the U.S. Open, which is the big one of the last Grand Slams of the season. And
Yeah,
then
the
now I am here.
And WTA Ventures is part of WTA, which is Women's Tennis Association, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's the commercial arm, and so we are looking to drive revenue on this side. And one of the vision is to make women's tennis players a household name, essentially at the end of the day. So and with that comes with a lot of marketing, not just the tennis but who they are as individuals as well. And so that is one of the goals for me and my team as we go out and we try to get partnerships with different entities that's outside of sports. So I think even just recently we had a collaboration with Vogue Italia for Jasmine Paolini, who just won a gold medal in the Olympics in doubles. And so that's what we're looking for, just to really step outside of the tennis, that tennis bubble, which is, if you look at all of the other sports, so you have basketball, they're stepping outside. You're getting to, LeBron James, he loves the kids. He has liquor partnerships and things like that. The WNBA players, you're seeing them with their fashion and all of those things. Football, you get to see all of that. And so tennis, I think now we're on the cusp of, like, you see Coco Gauff. She's fashion. She has a huge American Eagle partnership right now. She's done things for Carol's daughter for hair care. And so now you're really getting to see these players outside of what happens between the lines.
Right. No, that's an amazing example. And just teeing off on Paulini, she had an amazing run
Oh
this
my
year.
gosh.
And I think what she did is there's two things she broke, and not to digress, but a short in stature, right? Short,
Yes.
5'3", 5'2", something like that, and 28. It breaks all the barriers, like, oh, you gotta be young, tall, strong,
Correct.
whatever. So anyway, beautiful. But I was so happy personally when I saw Sinner last year walking onto the court with a Gucci bag on him, right?
Oh
I mean,
man.
so yeah, it makes perfect sense because Sinner is Italian and Gucci, but I think this whole uh, pollination or amalgamation rather of big brands supporting tennis players is actually a great step in the right direction, I think, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the one thing that tennis has that, say, maybe the NBA, and I'm just talking American sports, the NBA, the NFL, they're trying to get into these international markets, right? Tennis, we're already there. We have huge tournaments in Australia. We have London, Rome, Madrid. It's all over. Germany. It's all over. I mean, right now we are on our Asian swing, so they're in Beijing,
Yeah.
and we have Tokyo coming up. Wuhan is in 2 weeks, and so we're already in those markets. So how do we capitalize and use that international star power to really drive the message and the narrative for these players, but also for the WTA brand as well. And so with that, it's going to elevate tennis and elevate the players individually, and then also ultimately elevate the brand and the Women's Tennis Association and the ATP, to be honest.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, but I think in tennis is very unique because you have men's tennis and women's tennis, and they both are run by two separate organizations. The men's is run by ATP, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
the women's is WTA. So it's for folks who don't know much about it, it could sound different, but that's the way it is, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so women's tennis is, I think, the part of like what you're working with, right?
Yeah, yeah, and we do have joint tournaments, and so I talk to my ATP counterparts, and we have to think about each other when we are going out and getting maybe new brand marks and things like that. It's like, okay, like how's this going to look? How will this look aside an ATP logo, or ATP? How will this look aside a WTA logo? And so, although we are separate entities, we do come together for for a lot of our joint events. So a lot of the 1000s, which if you aren't familiar, that's one of the highest levels of tennis for the WTA and ATP outside of the Grand Slams. So the Grand Slams are not WTA and ATP tournaments. And so we have those joint events. So you have Indian Wells, you have Miami Open, in those tournaments like that. And so we have to think about one another and figure out how we can work together and maximize our resources together.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, but the WTA events goes from 250, 500, 750, and 1000, and then goes in the slams,
Yeah,
right?
well, it's Grand Slams, 1000s, 500s, 250s, and then there's the 125s as well,
Right.
which is not necessarily part of the tour, but it's definitely where our next generation of tennis players are coming from.
Yeah, so those are the different levels, folks, and
Hmm.
I think Grand Slam again, as you said, is the most watched. I believe it's the third most or fourth most watched sports in the world. I believe so. So yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, I mean tennis, where if you look at it from a commercial point of view, is going the route of cricket. I grew up in a cricket
Hmm.
crazy country, Bombay, India, and cricketers didn't make any money back in the day. There was not a lot of money, even though everybody was watching it. And it was not until I think 15 or 20 years back, then all the cricketers or the players suddenly got rich, and was flush with money. So
Yeah.
I always think that tennis is going that route. It could be 2 years, 5 years, I don't know, but I think it's following that route. And as you rightly said, it has a built-in audience, right?
Built-in
So,
audience. Yeah.
um, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say yes, a built-in audience. And so what we're trying to do is just like we have the hardcore tennis enthusiasts. Now we want to expand outside. I was like, okay, like who likes sports in general? Who likes to go to events, travel to different countries? Just because we have that international tennis is always on. Is the sun shining? Is the moon out? Tennis is on somewhere, and so you have that, and so there's a huge opportunity to truly expand and to make an even greater impact within the sports industry and really gain some ground and some traction. Maybe that, like, I don't think everyone who goes to like an NFL game, they're not necessarily like football fans. Not all of them, but they are there because it's maybe a must watch event. You have hospitality. You're being entertained and things like that. And so we want to start to be a part of that from a tennis standpoint as well, and really try to grow outside of just like the tennis enthusiasts who are going to watch no matter what and figure out how to watch. And so we want to make it easy and market and try to tell that narrative and the story that starts in late December and ends in like the end of November with our WTA finals.
Right, right, right. Um, so what is your like challenge, right? Like the content is there, and I
Yeah.
believe the creators are the players themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because they are the content themselves. So like how do you go about it? Like I guess part of your mandate would be to keep the current fans engaged, and even though
Hmm.
they're aging out, but also bring new people in the fold, right?
Yeah.
So how do you go about it? You don't have to go too deep in the weeds, but yeah.
Yeah, with creating content. So going into, say, like when I went into my role for the USTA and the US Open, the mindset was how do we create a piece of content that will resonate with and educate our tennis audience of what's going on, giving context and things like that, but it doesn't kind of stiff arm the people who may come across our content, especially within social media. Now that we're in this algorithmic feeds, and it's more people are watching our content who don't follow us than people who follow us. Last, like my first year of the U.S. Open, we hit like 1 billion engagements within those 2 weeks on social media. And I looked at our Instagram profile and the metrics there, and like 91% of the people who engaged with our content didn't follow us. So that meant that we were actually getting into the algorithm of people maybe who weren't who weren't tennis fans, but they could understand the content, and something within the content resonated with them. So, you know, our teams were looking to lean into trends. There's with TikTok, you have trending sounds and memes and things like that you can really lean into to just like bring some type of relevancy. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the hippo Mudang going around. That there's like a viral hippo that's in
Oh, really?
Thailand. It's like a little baby hippo, and so leaning into that, you see sports teams leaning into that. I think I saw a wrestling meme last night where Mudang was actually on top of a wrestler, and like the ref was like counting down. So they photo. So even just like, I know that sounds silly, but there's some relevancy. You're bringing some type of relevancy to, like this group of people who are maybe interested in this baby hippo. Now they're seeing sports content. So like, how are we able to get a part and be a part of that conversation? And so, the NFL season is going on. I'm sure that the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey videos that were shot at the U.S. Open, that team is probably going to use that content somewhere along the line. Say if the Kansas City Chiefs, if they win the Super Bowl again, and Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey are still together, I'm sure that content will be resurrected and be used within that moment to be able to bring some even context to that moment to be a part of the conversations. And so that's one thing that we're trying to do is be a part of the conversations that's even outside of tennis to bring in new audiences and new fans and bring like, hey, tennis is cool. Everybody wants to be courtside at the at NBA and WNBA games, but like, hey, who's sitting in the suites at the tennis matches? You'll be surprised. Actually, celebrities have always come to tennis matches, but I don't think they've been shown at tennis matches like in the way that they've been shown probably like the past couple of years. I know
Yeah.
that one of our goals when I was working for the U.S. Open, we had a social media videographer. And we're like, oh, Lil Wayne is here. Hey, I want you to go and put your camera on Lil Wayne and just like watch him for a couple of minutes. And we're going to put that out. We had one of the posts go viral from the New York Giants running back at the time. Like he was watching Serena and he was just like going and juking and all this kind of stuff. And we put that over the highlight of him watching Serena Williams during one of her last matches. That went viral. That clip was actually used like a couple of months ago for a WNBA game because it was like a back and forth between the two teams, and they brought that clip up of like us watching this match, and then it's him like just like watching this tennis match, but tennis WNBA game, and now we're a part, and also the NFL. And so, social media has made it very easy now to collaborate. So, sending out collabs to NFL, to the players, to the celebrities who come along, movies, TV shows, so that helps us to get into new audiences as well, and helps us to grow not only our social following but like our brand, and hopefully people will start to watch on television and all of that as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And before I divert off the Serena match that you brought up, I was there and it just happened.
Yeah.
And me and my daughter were there, and we were offered like $15,000 for our tickets. I really got tempted. And I'm like, that's 30 grand. That's like a
Woo!
used car. Anyway,
Yeah.
we didn't sell it, whatever. But no, but the point you brought about like the people who are looking at your reels and things like that. So, have you seen like a certain kind of content is resonating with people who are not playing tennis? So, for example, tennis players would be looking like, oh, that ace or that great forehand or stuff like that, right? Have you seen that content resonation with people who not playing? Uh,
Yeah, and so it just kind of depends on how you position it. You want to position it in a way, and captions, putting it with a trending sound, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe there's something that's I can't think of one right now, but if there's a trending sound that could bring in like that relevancy, it really goes a long way. And also just like, hey, look at this tennis player, this women's tennis player hitting this tweener over the net. That's just like a good play. Like I
like
don't
a
watch.
like a aha type of a thing. Like, oh,
Yeah,
how did you do
yeah.
it? Okay, okay.
And what's something fascinating that we started to see, especially with TikTok, is that for when I work for the USTA, is we have wheelchair content, right? Our wheelchair content did very well because people are fascinated by these incredible tennis players who are in wheelchairs and making these incredible shots, and people are like just glued in to it, right? And I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Paralympics TikTok account. They definitely push the boundaries there, but people are fascinated by these individuals, and so sometimes it's just like, no, that's a good play. I don't understand the sport. That is so cool. And I think that's it's all about how you frame the piece of content. And you can take one clip and you can post it for the tennis enthusiast. You can post it with a trending sound. You can post it with a different caption, and you have 4 or 5 different pieces of content with one post. And that's something that we really have to lean into and be mindful of as we're pushing out this content, as we're pushing out content.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like one of the biggest content, and you may disagree, is this girl at US Open chugging beers, right? And
Oh,
she did that. Now it's crazy because if you go to Wimbledon or French Open or something, like in America we like to eat and drink at on our seats, but if you go to European tours, nobody does that, right? It's
yeah.
a very American thing. So there is two sides to it, like a content that goes viral, right? But is it the right message, right? For
Correct.
example, so I mean, you can argue back and forth, but you're still bringing the attention. But yeah, I don't know if that would
Y-
be.
Yeah. Yeah, so I will say that was according to Meta, that was one of the most watched sports reels within North America. And it had nothing to do with sports. And yes, there were conversations about is that the right message? Is that appropriate and things like that? And so there's definitely a fine line and a balance when you're approaching content and looking at content. And so you kind of have to
Yeah.
count the costs and
Yeah.
look at the risk. Even with like using trends and things like that, I have conversations with our legal team all the time of like, okay, like how far can I push this boundary? How
Hmm.
can what's the line? What is the line that I can kind of dip my toe over? And so I stay in contact with our legal team as well.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And which makes perfect sense. So, have you seen like one platform performing better than the others, in terms of tennis? So, like I know you mentioned TikTok, but like, have you seen one performing better over the other?
I mean, they all serve different purposes, right? I think
Mm.
TikTok it's where I think brands can become unhinged is what we call it. I don't know if you've seen the Nutter Butter TikTok these days,
Yeah.
but just give Nutter Butter a good look. Duolingo as well is another one, and you can. It's a completely different tone of voice than probably what you would see on Instagram. But I would say right now, TikTok and Instagram, especially Instagram Reels, it's still the place
Hmm.
for growth. Twitter, we're seeing some decline on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, but it is also still the place where especially within sports, people are still having conversations around it, and you can have those natural conversations on the platform with those sports fans. And then I mean, it just kind of depends. And Facebook, I think probably for a lot of brands is probably their largest audience, and so you don't want to neglect that audience either. So I would say for growth, it is TikTok, Instagram, and also YouTube Shorts. People are really, looking at the metrics and things like that. People are watching YouTube,
Yeah.
and then for that sustainability and probably natural reach, that's like Twitter or X and Facebook.
No, no, that's great because so what I'm hearing is the short form content is outperforming everything else, essentially. Like
Yeah,
super short content,
yeah.
entertaining. Um,
That the
so
first three
what?
seconds is so important. You got to get the first 3 seconds
Yeah.
like captivate you. Yeah.
Yeah, so one question I have is this whole thing going on, like for example, at the US Open this year, suddenly it got so much highlight because the celebrities were called in and they were given more attention. And I think Wimbledon has been doing it for many years, where it is the event going on in June in UK, and they call everyone, every celebrity that you can think of. So, how concerted was this effort from USTA or maybe WTA? Was was involved too, but I think it was phenomenal. I think the attention was on tennis. So how much was it like a concerted effort that this is the route we should bring in and bring new people in?
Oh, it's definitely intentional. It's right now we're in an influencer culture, right? Like influencers is the thing that's the way to go. It's if you don't have it a part of your marketing plans, you're definitely missing out on growing your audience in whatever way you want to grow it, whether that's ticket sales or selling merchandise, e-com, whatever. If it's not a part of your plan, you are definitely missing out on a low-hanging fruit opportunity. And so celebrities in themselves are influencers. And so these celebrities are coming to these matches and you want to be there. They're telling you that this is the place to be. On a Friday night at midnight, I am sitting in this suite and I am watching this match. Clearly, this is the place to be. And so it's definitely an effort. It is a definitely a targeted effort, and for the U.S. Open, you have the all of the brands. So you have Ralph Lauren, you have Amex, Emirates, and they're bringing in their clientele as well, and telling them like, hey, come and watch this match with us, come and have an experience with us. And so I think it's a definitely a important part of the marketing for these tournaments. And so you saw the U.S. Open, they had like a blue carpet experience. They elevated the entrance, the arrivals, and things like that to make it a part of that content strategy. And I was a part of that before I left, and so that was definitely an a added effort, to the point where we actually hired, before I left, like a second videographer to be able to capture that, to be able to do interviews on the what's considered the blue carpet. And so yeah, it's just a different elevated experience, and using that celebrity to influence people to watch, to buy tickets, to consume the content. And yeah, and I don't see it going anywhere. I think more celebrities will probably start to be shown and be seen there. I think they've always been there. I just don't think that they've gotten the camera attention that maybe the U.S. Open had this year.
No, I think that was a clearly concerted effort, as you said, on influencer marketing, and it has worked wonders, right? So, which brings me to the other point, which is the whole name, image, and likeness thing
Yeah.
going on, right? So, if you're a tennis player now, and every celebrity is charging X amount of dollars to be there at the event. Do you see any pushback from the players in terms of like this is what you can feature us in, feature us not? That's one part of the question. The other is like, do you see some players more better suited to the camera and and they have more outgoing personality, so you can market them much better, say like Nick Kyrgios in the men's side of things? Have you seen some of these things?
Yeah, so it's getting to is working closely with the players, their agents, their teams, and okay, we want to meet you where you are. One thing, like Victoria Azarenka, she actually likes horseback riding. She watched Yellowstone and she picked up horseback riding, and so we did content and took her horseback riding and produced some content. Mira Andreeva, she wanted to get her nails done, so we actually hired a nail tech before Wimbledon and had the nail tech come in, and we filmed like a content series with her. And so it just kind of depends on like meeting a player where they are and getting to know them. Do they want to be front of camera, or do they kind of want to be in the back? And so like, okay, like what can we do? How can we showcase you? You like to play games with, if we're going to say like an event with kids, you'd rather play a game with a kid than like speak to them. All right, well, let's play a game. What game do you want to play? What game do you want to, how do you want to engage? And so it's meeting them where they are and making sure that we don't blanket them, because they're all, I mean, we have what, over 200 members. So we need to be able, we can't just say like, okay, all of these 200 members will do this thing. maybe this is the goal of it, but it's possibly cut 200 different ways in how we would want to approach it. And so it's working with them because we want them to enjoy it and want to do it again if we ask them. And so we're very careful, and we get their input on it. Yeah.
So do you do outreach to specific players, or they reach out like, hey, I want to create content, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's actually a healthy combination of both.
Yeah.
I have a player marketing manager who has made an amazing effort to meet with a lot of the agents, meet with a lot of their teams, and get what are they interested in outside of tennis. Yes, we know they want to win. They want to win Grand Slams. They want to win tennis tournaments and all of that stuff. But who are they outside of the court? Who are they, and what are they interested in? And she basically has kind of like a Bible of like
Yeah.
who these players are. And as she's going out and talking to different companies and things like that, and as our partnerships team is going out and trying to sell partnerships and things like that, that's in our mind.
Yeah.
And even getting to know who they are, like family upbringings and things like that. Like, okay, let's tap into that if you want to. Also, like we don't want to force it either.
Yeah, those are all of them have some amazing stories, right? Like
Right.
even the Billionaire Players Club, even they have a great story. And
Yeah.
I'm talking about Emma and Jessica Pegula and stuff like that. So, what are the three critical marketing metrics, basically, that in terms of analytics, that these are the numbers like reach, engagement? What are the top three things that you go in a meeting and present like this is where we hit it?
Yeah, so right now it's definitely so social is the easiest, right? So that is it's right here. We can touch it, we can control it, because like with the different tournaments we have, there are different requirements and things like that from a tournament standpoint because a lot of the times the tournament, so Indian Wells. Indian Wells is over the marketing, and we can have like some type of influence, a little influence over it, but at the end of the day, it's their tournament. But social is our like primary focus at this point. And so we are looking at engagement metrics. We're looking at followers, reach a little bit, to an extent, but like you can reach someone and they not engage with your content. You if you just look at how you scroll through things, you've been reached, but you didn't engage. So,
It's like
that's
impression.
right. And so, we have that as a directional, but it's mostly looking at that engagement and followers, for that.
Yeah, great, great. So before I let you go, I have my as I said, my daughter is a budding junior tennis player, D1
Yeah.
collegiate player. So the girls had a question, and I have to ask you. And here, let me read the question here.
Uh oh. Uh oh.
Yeah, I
Hot
know.
seat.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting question when they send it to me, and the question is, why do right now the men's tennis still get so much importance, and why women's tennis finals are so less attended than the men's final? And even if you look at the US Open men's final, there were all these celebrities and all the folks there, but in the women's final was basically not so many people there. So what is the WTA doing to basically bridge the gap and make it at an equal footing, and also make this as an event as the men's final?
Ooh, all right. Loaded question. Is this
I
another
mean,
podcast?
I know, but this was a question from my daughter, Isabella, and she's a budding D1 collegiate player, so I had to ask.
Yeah, no, what's really fascinating about that question is like, and I didn't look at the metrics for this year, but last year the women's final was actually more watched than the men's final for the U.S. Open. I would have to look at it this year to see what it was, and sometimes it's just like, the length of time. I do think that is a part of it because there were celebrities, who wanted to come to the women's final, especially for the U.S. Open. And I'm just speaking there because that's the question. There were celebrities there, and so it may not have been shown there, and that is maybe not shown on the broadcast. And how are we trying to kind of level the playing field? We are doing our best to market these women as best as we can. That's why we are making the effort to meet with them. Hey, what are you interested in? Telling that story outside of tennis, because the one thing with tennis that that one unfortunate thing about tennis is that like someone can lose first round and then you don't see them anymore. Whereas with basketball and football, like you're going to see them the next week, or you're going to see them in 2 days for basketball and things like that. But with tennis, like if you are going to see Sabalenka at a match, and she unfortunately, or you're going to this tournament to see Sabalenka, if she loses the first round, that's it, right? And she's out until the next tournament. And I think that is one of the pieces, and that's why it's so important to tell the full story of these athletes. And so we're making an effort to really amplify who they are as individuals and not just as tennis players. And so we're trying our best. Tell your daughter we're doing our best, and we're putting our best foot forward, and hopefully in this upcoming year she'll start to see the difference of how we're trying to market. We have so we have some exciting things coming up, and hopefully she'll be able to see a more turning of the tides there within tennis.
No, that's amazing. No, that's amazing. No, that's great. And you being at the helm and the whole WTA arm and the ventures and all that, I think the women's tennis is in great hands. And I'm so excited because I watch a lot of women's tennis than men's. Men's could be boring sometimes because they're
Yeah.
just going from one age to the other. Uh, but so, what is the best way to follow you, or if people have questions or just want to follow you on LinkedIn or any social channels?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. I try my best to keep up with my LinkedIn and
Yeah.
connect there. So, yeah, Reshina Warren, Reshina Warren. I'm there on LinkedIn.
Oh, that great, great, great. So thank you so much, Rashina. This is great. Thank you for doing it and sharing your insights and all the cool things that we didn't know about from the world of sports. So thank you so much for doing it, and great to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, Bob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.